Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment class. This is the Arcturian New Cycle Program transmissions. And what a beautiful time as we prepare for a whole new year. Let's welcome Jean Ang. Jean, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Lauren. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and really excited about these new sets of transmissions. And of course, the ending of this year coming out of the solstice and entering the new phase, a new cycle and a new year on the calendar. It's really great.
Yes, this is an introduction to 3 sessions that we're going to be doing, and they're going to help us culminate this year, this very transformational year. I know that your clients have witnessed deep transformation, and so these transmissions are here to set us up for the newness, a new cycle. Can you share how you were guided to bring these through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of spiritual traditions, either follow the lunar or the Gregorian calendar, like a lunar new year. And there's usually different spiritual practices that are done. So I think that pattern is sort of in the morphic field that various traditions tap into. And of course, we're a reflection or a connection to the spiritual world and spiritual beings, both those who we have loved, who've now gone on into like a new journey, who are now in the spiritual world, as well as higher spiritual beings, are very aware of what's going on here and this kind of renewal of a cycle. So I think everything sort of is conducive basically to laying down a new pattern. And there's this, I think, 2 or 3 phases usually in these types of celebrations or practices of the kind of new year. And one is an integration of what's happened. And I think many people, myself included, it's almost like December's here already. It happened so quickly. Maybe every year seems to go faster in some ways. It's just a unique aspect of time as we kind of live in linear time. But maybe we can recall when we were a child, summer like seemed forever. And now like the whole year is kind of almost, we just felt like it started. And now we're here in a new cycle. But it's very cyclical. That's the thing. We're now back in a new cycle. So it's an integration in general, and then a laying down of new patterns. So when we kind of maybe unpack a little bit about the transmissions, they're somewhat separated so we can kind of have some cognitive understanding of what might be coming down, although usually this work is very holistic in terms of the spiritual world and spiritual beings kind of bringing things as we need them. But there's new patterns sort of separated into good health, prosperity or manifestation, and then spirituality, which is this unique rebirth or resurrection cycle for this series. And then finally, there's an embodiment, or like, how do we bring these through, or practices we may bring. And I think we have that in our psyche, this idea of New Year's resolutions. We have this idea that we want to do something new to bring us forward. And that's sort of that embodiment phase. whether it's new habits, new practices. So that'll be also a big part of this series.
Well, it's beautiful because we would tend to think that, the old rules don't apply anymore as we're moving into the newness here. But yet, when we look at a calendar, it's very indicative of time itself. And so to go through a new year, it really is a celebration. It really is a nice marker for us to look back at the year we've been through and look forward. And so many, with our finger on the pulse from the people that we deal with every day, there's so many that are feeling this need to do something new and in a different way. So this is a great time to do that. And so these are energetic transmissions. These are silent for the most part, but there's so much going on. As you mentioned, we are getting help from spiritual beings, masters, the Arcturians, ascended ones, and they're giving us information, and you call them downloads. Can you share a little bit more about what is happening energetically? Because there's nothing really to do except to receive these frequencies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so great. Like we've been doing a lot of the dream work, and people have been, always fascinated by dreams, but that's kind of been a big emphasis. Plus, of course, we have our own inner visions during meditation, and many people feel drawn because and of course, mediumship, people are connecting to the spiritual world. But I think what's happened as we sort of have matured into the different cycles and working with the different mastery empowerment classes and people's own practices is we really have become sort of very multidimensional, receiving information, both in our traditional ways, which would be like maybe researching a topic, studying a topic, studying techniques or learning from human teachers or human, now there's video and internet. But, we have this spiritual internet, which I think people are now very tapped into, receiving directly their downloads, connecting, to spiritual forces or guides that they know. And I think, from the spiritual world, since it's so multidimensional with time, they can kind of see what's slightly coming ahead or even very far ahead, but that we're kind of receiving now. There's an interesting thing I was recently reading from Rudolf Steiner about how the spirit world sees time. And he was saying that from a spirit's point of view, they see like what we see as linear time as space, like a distance in space. So if we send a message or an image to someone in the spirit world, let's say a loved one who's passed, let's say before we fall asleep, we create an image, maybe some loving image. And then 8 hours later, when we wake up, we send another image or receive an answer. To the spirit, it looks like it all happens at once, but it looks like a spatial difference. Like as if we saw someone put a pin or a stake like on the ground, and then like 3 feet later put another stake. That would be the translation into the spirit world. So they kind of see our spatial time like all at once, but just spread out in space. So they may see this new cycle. They can kind of see it all at once, like what might happen in the next December. So they can kind of bring a download to us, although we'll unpack it over linear time. So I think that's the real inspiration and kind of the heart of these transmissions is connecting to our guides, and of course supported by perhaps the Arcturians or other angelic beings we invited. And then the power of the group energy is really another big part of that connection.
Yes, in our group, there's always an amplification of the energies. And when people share what they've experienced, that actually helps everyone understand more about what they were going through. So it really is beautiful and wonderful. So as we're talking about time and becoming multidimensional, it's really interesting because we can sit here. This is December of 2022. And like software programs will let you see December of 2023, and they'll show like all the years up until 2050. And so in a way, it feels like we could already be in December of 2023. I mean, I had that revelation earlier this week. It's like this year went by so fast that we can really feel what it's going to be like in December of 2023.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
maybe this is the integration of time that we're talking about. Do you have anything more to share on the seemingly acceleration of time? Why it seems to move faster? Is it because, as children, it seemed like it couldn't get here fast enough, as you were saying, Christmas or our birthdays couldn't get here fast enough. But do you think it's because of our age that time seems to be accelerating? Or are there different dynamics going on?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think it may be a combination. We have more experience in the linear space-time world, but then also our consciousness maybe is more complex, or as we become more multidimensional, we're sort of realizing time at different aspects. So not only linear, but speaking of spiritual beings' perception of time, perhaps because we are also existing in the spirit world, when we go there, whether that is in certain practices or in the sleep state, then we probably are experiencing time like space. And so we can, like you said, probably experience 2023 in the dream space. We might not remember it consciously, or sometimes we do. Maybe it's premonitions. But we're experiencing time instantly, like a spirit would, but spatially. And so we probably are experiencing a lot of things that are in the future and the past, and then in parallel universes when we're, let's say, in the dream or sleep dream space. And then kind of bringing that, it's almost like having an experience, but not remembering the details, but then coming back and somehow you embody it, but you just don't know cognitively what it was consciously anymore.
Like when you wake from a dream that was very vivid, you may not remember the details, but you know the feeling. So, all right. So I love the integration and the laying down of new patterns and the embodiment of the new cycle. And so let's go over the 3 different transmissions. The first day is focused on longevity, rejuvenation, and good health.
Yeah. So speaking of those different various spiritual practices, usually like longevity, spiritual rituals or practices are done in the new year. Of course, they're done throughout, and then if people need them, they're done. But maybe that's also a sense of gratitude, that we're here to celebrate the new year in this sort of special spacesuit called the human physical body, which gives us, it's beautiful to think that we have the time to experience things here in the space-time reality. It's such a unique experience. It's not the only experience we'll have, but and we can always maybe have it again. But it's a great time. I think that's a big integration keynote, is kind of the gratitude that we're here. We made it to the another year, and then the sense of we can heal things. We can bring back energies. Sometimes in the Tibetan tradition, they call it the soul energy, La, L-A, La energies. They have like La massage to kind of work on the channels, but it's a type of soul energy that it can get lost. It can get like spread out. It's very similar to the shamanic idea of soul loss, but just because we've expended the entire year doing things, which is great. So we kind of will, in the transmission, bring those energies back and then rebalance them. So, and then a lot of times they use the element model. So we have the earth, the water, fire, air, and space. So we kind of rebalance and actually ask the spirits of the elements, which kind of make up our physical universe, our physical bodies too, to bring those back to us. And we kind of start out rejuvenated. And when we're in good health, we don't think about it, which is great. It's only when like the car kind of has a little nick or ding, so to speak, that we all of a sudden become very aware of our physical body. So all the rest of the focuses, which would be prosperity, manifestation, spirituality, it really rests on the bedrock of good physical health. So, if that starts to shake a little, then those other two kind of get put to the side. So that's why that's the first transmission, is kind of to re-establish that, or make sure that's kind of solid.
And so just a quick follow-up question to that. So if people are experiencing issues with their health and that they'd like to improve, what do they need to do? Do they just set their intentions or work with their guides and receive in that way?
Oh yeah, yeah. It would be a massive healing energy too. That first one, the first transmission, the first day, and we'll talk about some, best practices to continue that forward. But that could be considered a healing session also. And then with the just to reemphasize that magnification of what I call the group pillar, because of the group energy. Certain spiritual forces or beings, they are more facilitated, or even some traditions say certain spiritual beings only come when there's like more than one person, like in groups of people. So there's sort of like a unique download that occurs with that big group energy.
That is exciting. We're kind of like a beacon of light. The group energy, you called it a pillar. It's a pillar of light that is a beacon for the assistance from on high. It's quite beautiful. Okay. And so then the next session, this is probably the most popular that people want to focus on as people take this time and write down their goals or what they want to achieve. Prosperity and good fortune and manifestation is probably number one on the list. And so this is powerful because this is a good time. We're in sync with the year, this calendar year, to enhance manifestation and prosperity.
Oh yeah, I think there's so much joy in manifestation, because I think that's the universe. It's always creating biologically, ideas, creatively, multidimensionally, and we're all part of that. And I think there's that inherent joy when we're creating. Sometimes they call it that Shakti, the divine feminine energy, that combining with the Shiva, which is pure consciousness. So it's kind of the intention and the energy, and we kind of put that together. So we'll go over, again, best practices, I call them, techniques for manifestation. But again, the bedrock, maybe energetically, is the transmission. And I think what's going on in the transmission, besides like our intentions being put there and downloading new patterns, which is part of that creativity of like what's new, maybe something new, ideas, new things for people's business, new things for people's relationships, even the way they want to work their health, maybe a health plan. But is sort of this idea that as we purify and clarify our seven spiritual bodies, I've used that seven planes of nature model. It's sort of like the divine Shakti energy has like a clear path to manifest. And I think we feel that. We felt that. I think that's what's so attractive about manifestation, is like when we're in the flow, it's so cool to see like an idea come into reality, particularly when it comes in very with grace, meaning there's, you just see it kind of appear in a beautiful way, and how things all interact. So that's sort of really what we're doing here. And it's great to do that in the new year, because it unpacks over the course of the year. And I think that information is sort of built into what this unique aspect of time that we've been talking about.
One thing that the spiritual community questions now is the need to make goals. What about goals? I mean, some would say those are not important anymore, just go with the feeling. But what is your take on that? Because in a sense, we do need some sort of scaffolding to reach towards, or a container to reach towards.
That's great. That's great. You packed a lot of powerful concepts in that, with those terms of scaffolding and container, and also the first mode that you're saying, like this kind of new idea, or perhaps a complementary way of looking at manifestation. It's kind of like the idea of like adjusting to actually what shows up, because everything is divine if you see it, like the entire experience we're having here is divine. So rather than trying to extremely fit it into a certain like almost shoebox, we kind of like acknowledge what's showing up, and like you said, maybe go with the flow is the idea of that particular perception. And I think there's a balance is where I'm kind of probably going to go with this, but then like you said, we need a container for this pure divine energy. The analogy I use is like, if you just turn on the fire hydrant, it's very difficult to water your garden because it just floods it. You can't, or it doesn't go to where it needs to. So you got to take the fire hydrant and attach a hose to it, and then a spigot at the end. That's the container of the divine energy, which would be the water from the hydrant, that powerful water. And then you could like water your garden and without destroying it, and you could water, you could clean your car without like putting a dent in it or flooding, the entire street. So in some ways, the container helps, which might be a goal, or at least some scaffolding of a goal or intention or direction that one wants to go through. So I think it's a balance and it's dynamic. So people, as they tune into their intuition, may find one time is better to use something very specific, and another time they're kind of going with the flow and letting things unfold, right out of the divine. So I think there's a balance. Yeah, can use all of the above.
This really is like a spiral on our planet. Our planet goes through the seasons. Nature goes through seasons. And so here we are coming into winter. Winter is upon us. And that is good for the rebirth, renewal, death, and resurrection cycle of the third day that we're talking about. But that makes it really good when we're talking about time and how we can use time with these cycles, like the seasons. Do you want to add anything about the way that nature is really replicating the calendar, or maybe the calendar is replicating nature or the seasons of nature?
Yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, you hit it right on the head, and that seems to be what was coming to my vision or intuition as we were talking, is this cyclical aspect of nature, and then as a sacred geometrical pattern, the circle and the vortex and the spiral. And so, in some ways, when you can get one dimension above. And they have this in the Rosicrucian tradition. Actually, St. John the Divine, if people connect with St. John the Divine, is considered the eagle initiate because as a being, his presence was able to see time as a geometry, which means it's like one step. It's like the spatial version of time, like one dimension above our linear time. And so a lot of times when you look, if you were to kind of look at time spatially, which is what you were describing, it would look like, like a spiral, like these beautiful mandalas with a spiral in it, because you can see it's going back and back, but it's not going back around the same course, but it goes back kind of close to each other in maybe either inwards or outward spiral. Which you could say is the way the universe works, is a very deep pattern of the universe, the vortex or the spiral. Things are always spinning, planets are spinning, and then down to the subatomic particles are all spinning. So I think when we tune into that and recognize that, which maybe is, like you said, the pattern for the third day, which we can unpack a bit after this, is that we're in a cyclical pattern. And when we kind of begin to ride that cyclical pattern rather than seeing it as linear solely, we kind of are more in the flow. And perhaps when we are in that way, we can manifest in that kind of very free and easy way. You could call it grace and ease, almost like we don't need to necessarily set any boundaries or goals. And then when we feel like, oh, we're kind of, where are we here? And then we kind of go back and we can make some scaffolding to kind of bring us back into the line again.
Yes, and I love that imagery of the spiral because I can really sense that and feel that the Rosicrucians had. And you know the game that we played as children, Crack the Whip, where you have a long line of people, the people in the front, the force is not that it's not that strong, or it's not that wild. And so it seems almost, and this goes back to explain maybe about why time seems to speed up with age. But this crack the whip concept, it's like as we age, so now the experience that you spoke of, we are now at the end. And so if it's a spiral like the Fibonacci code, our existence on this planet, walking in this physical suit and the experience that it brings, puts us at the end of that crack the whip tail. And
Mhm.
so that could actually make it seem like it's going faster for us. And that's just the imagery that I got, and I wanted to share it. And so navigating through that, it's really good to be mindful of these times and the times to manifest and put your attention on what it is that we want to create. So this is exciting for everyone because the new year, it's all around the world, you know. I think when I wanted to also share, when you were explaining the spiral of time, when we went through 2020, that very transformational year, that just seemed like a big acceleration of time. But here we are coming back around. So it just seems like there's no going back to the old way of the spiral before then. And so it's all expanding even further. And this is the newness that's coming about. This is the newness because the old systems are collapsing. So to me, it's very exciting that we can create so much of the new right here, right now. Like the old limits are no longer there. I remember at the beginning of 2022, I looked at the first day of the year and I was like, oh my gosh, the old rules no longer apply. But yet here we are coming around in another circle. And this is such a huge opportunity to create new, like we've never created before. Solution energy really is what I'm speaking of.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like I think there's a quote from Heraclitus that is basically you can never step in the same river twice, same
Uh,
spot, because the river's never the same and you're never the same. So it's sort of like you're saying, you can't actually go over the same path, but you can cyclically go back to somewhere new, but it's always new when you're returning back to the same kind of location, but it's not the same path. Yeah. So I think that's like what you said, the creation energy, the new energy. And that's why it's so dynamic. And I think inherently at some deep level, it really brings us joy, when we're in that flow of creation. And I think what we're doing is like connecting to those patterns, through this discussion, through this kind of thinking, or like downloading actually that right into kind of our consciousness right now.
Yes, I mean, we can already feel the energy. That's why when December comes upon us, it's like, whoa, or maybe even November, it's like, wow, I can't believe this year. But then that is part of the rebirth. It
Mhm.
is part of the rebirth. It's like clean slate, you get to start fresh again. And that is invigorating for people. And so I can feel people who want to get their books done, they want to get products, programs launched. That's the excitement that I feel. So we invite all of our audience to come and join us and be in these energies of renewal. Do you want to share on the third session with the rebirth, renewal, death, and resurrection cycle?
Yeah. I think what we've been talking about is maybe all an unpacking of that, but just leading up to that is that we are in this cyclical pattern, and that when we tune in or connect to kind of these deep, you could call it sacred geometrical patterns that even the ancients, that's why I mentioned those two texts, the Tibetan book of, or actually, well, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but even more ancient is the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which actually I think the accurate title is the coming forth by light, coming forth by day through light, is actually, these patterns that if you look at any of the hieroglyphs on the tombs in ancient Egypt, they were really always really tuned in to resurrection. I'm not even sure when I went to Egypt and talked to some of the guides there, the physical guides, that they really had an idea of reincarnation. It was more focused on resurrection. And they were very, tuned into the death resurrection cycle. Almost all the hieroglyphs, particularly in like the King's Chamber, the King's Valley, and those temples in the King's Valley, are very deep knowledge on those hieroglyphs that we'll probably talk about, that I think will be packed in this transmission, because those were universal patterns. And of course, ancient Egypt is very interesting to us now because it's actually a cycle. A lot of people who had an incarnation in ancient Egypt, the reason it's so big a topic, and you see it on Gaia and here and books, and we're all kind of tuned into it, is because it's a cycle coming back, but in a new time. And a lot of us who are there are reincarnated now. So when we see that, we kind of get that energy surge. And so I think by receiving the transmission that's new now, but that's formed on a former pattern of what those initiates in ancient Egypt brought down, we're kind of bringing forth a new spirituality. That's why it's focused on spirituality, but on that pattern, but the new version is what would be being downloaded. And I think the cosmic beings like the Arcturians, probably people are connected to other type of cosmic guides, when they meet together or when we meet together, I think that they're ripe to bring down a new type of resurrection cycle.
I just love that word resurrection in place of reincarnation. I don't think we're going to replace the word reincarnation, but the perspective of resurrection versus reincarnation or past lives, because I know in the transmissions that we do with you, past lives come up for people. Even this year, there was a moment when I looked around and I saw past lives with every person that was in my field. I did. I saw past lives, but here's the difference. The resurrection actually feels like it's more of an embodiment of the past lives rather than the past lives being out there and being separate. So the word resurrection, actually, I can feel it's actually allowing me and hopefully others the ability to take all those past lives and just be really present with them. There's nothing to heal from them anymore when we do that. And that is very powerful. It feels extremely powerful right now.
Yeah. I kind of had that image, like the scroll kind of just coming, rather than continuing to open the scroll, those ancient scrolls, you just kind of bring it right here to the present, you're just right here. They're all rolled up because they're all there, but you're just right in where you need to be, which is right here, right now.
Right here, right now. And actually, we can feel the multidimensionality of all of us. And as we were contemplating multidimensionality this year, there's a new perspective from that with that image of the scroll and this idea of resurrection. It's not just multidimensional in different dimensions, but it's all through space and time. So as we are multidimensional, that's all of our past lives. It's that scroll again, all just wound up right here. Beautiful. I love it. Okay. Well, I wanted to share as well. We're going to get into a quick little experimental transmission with you in just a few moments. But I wanted to say that the wisdom that you bring through, Jean, in all of these workshops that we do is extraordinary, because you reference books that you read. You're one of the most well-read spiritual teachers that I know, and you share so much wisdom and knowledge from what you do read, that is why people wanted to show up just to get your latest book, your book recommendations and what you have to share in that way. And then again, the folks who join us, it really feels like soul family. I think that everyone in our group that is called to this absolutely has had a past life in Egypt and also Tibet, because this wisdom, and maybe even ancient India and the Vedics, because this resonates so deeply with all of us. So it really is a wonderful time to get together, and we're excited for this with everyone to join in. And we also give a bonus course from the past workshops that we've had. Is there any that come to mind for you to offer with the purchase of this course?
Well, we've been really working with the immortal body because that was the level 11, which is exactly where I am right now. I'm down in Boston doing that level 11, but those were the frequencies the first time they were used. I know that was our last one, but maybe that one because now they would probably even when people listen to that, since we've been working so much with that now, there's probably an upgrade embedded in there. So
Oh,
maybe.
beautiful. Thank you so much. And that is building the immortal body of light. And I wanted to share, I was reading a book that right when we were in the middle of those 3 sessions that explained the light body just as you were explaining it as well. And it is new for people to witness the light body in this way. We tend to think that we know what it is, but the spiritual texts that support what the light body is and how we can actually build it in the astral realm is, and then we're talking about resurrection, and that's our vehicle of resurrection. And then when we go into the dream space and you dream about a loved one who has passed on, but that person is in a body when they were in their 20s, where they look perfectly healthy and beautiful, the immortal body of light is what we've been working on to build. And I think we're still, those who were in that workshop are still practicing that. Our consciousness, we can consciously create that body and transfer consciousness to that vehicle, but people are doing it whether they realize it or not. And that's why as loved ones pass on and then appear to us in dreams in that body, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think yes, yes. And then that would just be a way to kind of like one conscious way to do it. But I think, like you said, it's an inherent natural gift of it's like our nature. It's our it's our human nature and like what you're experiencing. And I didn't get a chance to share during those sessions that I had a dream that I was watching all these planes take off, like right behind each other, out of a town, out of a city. And it was so fascinating because it's how one plane, because you don't want one plane in reality like right behind each other, but it was just like rows and rows of planes. And for me, planes are like an astral vehicle, similar to a Merkaba. It's shown up as a theme for me, like a vehicle to travel around in the astral world. So I think we were onto something.
I think we are on to something. And I had my first lucid dream
Oh,
that I could really, I mean, I've been working on it for a while, the jumping and the flying. But then in the dream, I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is it. You can go anywhere. And I was jumping into new countries and just going everywhere. So this is part of the work that everyone can expect, or the experiences that people can expect from doing these transmissions and sitting in the silence and sitting in the downloads, the energetic downloads that we all get to witness and be a part of in these groups. So really cool and very exciting. So thank you, Jean. We are looking forward to these series. And now would be a beautiful time for a little mini session of some of these frequencies.
but yeah, I thought maybe we'd do the transmission segment, get a kind of a fractal emanation of that with the resurrection, rebirth cycle or patterns. That's kind of part of nature, and sort of we're kind of downloading or connecting to that pattern in this new year as an overlay for kind of what's coming up and what's new for us here. So it'd be very creative. So if you have any creative intentions, this will help manifest that or accelerate that. If you're doing anything new or want to both integrate or do something new in your spiritual work, your maybe work in the world, any relationships, yes, and also for your health. Okay, yeah, so people can set those intentions, or like what Lauren had pointed out, maybe some people want to also be just open to what's unfolding in their higher self or the divine. Okay, so we're experiencing the Arcturian rebirth, resurrection, cycle patterns. You may get even insights or thoughts on how to implement your new goals, or maybe a new spiritual practice. Maybe something that was said as unpacking. It was exactly what you needed to hear for your next step or next stage. Also, your clairvoyant gifts or healing gifts may be even more blossoming or expressed. Also, your connection to your guides may be stronger and more clear, as well as new guides may be coming in for this new cycle. So we'll deepen one more dimension down, kind of reaching even deeper into our superconsciousness or subconscious, accessing these ancient patterns, but in a new way. Also, we may even connect to Lemuria, ancient Egypt, knowledge that's deep in our psyche. Maybe the Greco-Roman or Greek times, maybe in Tibet, India. South America. Okay. You can just gently come back to your physical body, knowing that this will all unpack and it's already starting to unfold. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes, snap your fingers.
I just love in just those few short moments, the experience that comes forward. I immediately felt a spiral. And then I felt a deep cleansing and clearing of the whole past year, just that whole, all judgment that we could ever pass on ourselves, just gone. And yet the resurrection and the rebirth of just all of our wisdom from all of that coming forward brand new, and still unpacking what that was, but it feels so fresh and invigorating. That's the word, invigorating.
That's great. Like a fresh new water in the stream.
Fresh new water in the stream, a clean stream. Good. Jean, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for this. We are really looking forward to this. And again, what a beautiful time to come together in the final week of 2022, the most transformational year, gosh, in my life that I can remember, in such subtle ways. And here we are on the threshold of a new year, and we can really power it up and amplify the intentions with these transmissions with the help of our guides, the new guides that came in. I was actually shown that they've been on the outskirts, kind of prodding me, but now they're stepping even closer. So that is really fun and, again, invigorating. As we say goodbye, is there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Oh yeah, I think you hit it again right on the head. Like that last year, invigoration, almost like a gentle water stream, or even maybe a powerful waterfall imagery coming through us, washing through us, and then onto the kind of canoeing down this great new river that we're creating here, also together. That's the nice thing, together.
Yes, and we know that 2023 is a year of community in all new ways, and it's going to be really fun to see how that pans out and comes together. So happy paddling down that stream, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we really look forward to having you with us in this online event. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Thanks everyone.